What would you do if your husband handed you divorce papers in front of your entire family? Can one complicated secret really destroy everything, even when you believe you're the victim? The answer landed on my doorstep with a lawyer's letter and a room full of shocked faces. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I never thought I was doing anything wrong. That's what I kept telling myself as I walked through the front door of our suburban townhouse, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Nathan was sitting at the kitchen table, his laptop open, glasses perched on his nose like always. Our 7-year-old daughter Maya was upstairs, probably already asleep. "Hey," I said, dropping my purse on the counter. "Sorry I'm late again. Work was absolutely crazy today." Nathan looked up from his screen, his dark eyes studying my face. "How was the Henderson project meeting?" I froze for just a second. "What meeting?" "You texted me this morning saying you had a late meeting about the Henderson project. That's why you'd be home after 9. My mind raced. Had I said Henderson? "Oh, right. Yeah, it ran long. You know how these vendor meetings go." I turned away, busying myself with getting a glass of water. "Did Maya finish her homework?" "Evadne." His voice was quiet, measured. "I called your office around 8:30. Janet said everyone left by 6 today." The glass slipped slightly in my hand. Nathan was always so methodical, so careful with details. It was what made him good at his IT job, but it was becoming a problem for me. "Janet doesn't know everything that goes on," I said, forcing a laugh. "I was in the conference room with the vendor reps. She probably didn't see me." "Which vendors?" "God, Nathan, what is this? 20 questions?" I spun around to face him, putting on my best offended expression. "I work hard all day, and I come home to you interrogating me like I'm some kind of criminal." He closed his laptop slowly. "I'm not interrogating you. I'm asking about your day." "No, you're being paranoid and controlling. Just because you work from home doesn't mean you need to track my every move." I could feel the familiar heat of righteous anger building in my chest. "I'm tired. I'm going to take a shower." As I headed toward the stairs, I heard him say quietly, "Your phone's been buzzing all evening." I stopped, my hand on the banister. "So?" "It's face down on the counter. You never leave it face down." Maybe I just don't want to be bothered by work emails. I grabbed the phone, clutching it protectively. God forbid I tried to disconnect for 5 minutes. Nathan stood up, and I could see something in his expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, exactly. More like disappointment. "Evadne, if something's going on..." "Nothing's going on." The words came out sharper than I intended. "You're being jealous and controlling, and honestly, it's getting really old. I work with people, Nathan. I have to communicate with colleagues and vendors. That's how business works." "I know how business works." "Do you? Because sitting in our basement writing code all day isn't exactly the same as managing client relationships and vendor contracts." I knew it was a low blow, but I needed him to back off. "Maybe if you understood what I actually do for a living, you wouldn't be so suspicious every time my phone rings." The hurt that flashed across his face made my stomach twist, but I pushed the feeling down. He was the one being unreasonable here. "I'm going upstairs," I said. "And my phone is private, Nathan. Everyone deserves privacy, even married people." I was halfway up the stairs when I heard his voice again, so quiet I almost missed it. "I saw the bank statement, Evadne. Chez Laurent, Tuesday night, $140. My blood turned to ice. Tuesday night. The night I'd told him I was working late on inventory reports. The night Liam and I had gone to that little French place downtown after our meeting ran long. I turned around slowly. Nathan was standing at the bottom of the stairs, holding a piece of paper. "I can explain that," I said, my mind racing. "I'm sure you can." He folded the paper carefully. "But maybe you should think about what you're going to say first. Because I've been thinking about it for 3 days, and I can't come up with any explanation that makes sense. Nathan, good night, Evadne. He walked back into the kitchen, leaving me standing on the stairs, my phone still clutched in my hand. I could feel it vibrating with another message, probably from Liam. I'd been so careful, but apparently not careful enough. Upstairs, I locked the bathroom door and finally looked at my phone. 3 messages from Liam. Hope you got home okay. Dinner was amazing. You were amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. I stared at the messages, my heart pounding. It wasn't like I'd planned for this to happen. Liam was just easy to talk to, understanding. He listened when I complained about Nathan's controlling behavior, his constant questions, the way he made me feel like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. And yes, maybe things had progressed beyond just talking. Maybe we'd had a few dinners, a few drinks, a few moments where the conversation had turned more personal. But it wasn't like I was having some sordid affair. It was complicated. I typed back, "Everything's fine. Nathan's just being paranoid as usual." The response came immediately. "Maybe we should be more careful." I stared at that message for a long time. More careful, as if what we were doing was something that required care, something secretive and wrong. But that wasn't how it felt. It felt like the first time in years that someone actually understood me, actually valued what I had to say. Nathan used to be like that back when we were dating, but marriage and parenthood had changed him, made him suspicious and controlling and cold. I wasn't the problem here. Nathan was. I deleted Liam's messages and put my phone on silent. Tomorrow I'd figure out how to explain the restaurant charge. Maybe I'd say I'd taken a client to dinner. That was believable, right? That was something an administrative assistant might do. As I got ready for bed, I could hear Nathan moving around downstairs, the soft sounds of him cleaning up the kitchen, checking the locks, turning off the lights. Our normal routine, except nothing felt normal anymore. When I finally went to bed, Nathan was already lying on his side, facing away from me. I could tell from his breathing that he wasn't asleep. "Nathan," I whispered. He didn't answer. I lay there in the dark, listening to the silence between us, and tried to convince myself that everything would be fine. This was just a rough patch. All marriages had rough patches. Nathan would calm down, stop being so suspicious, and things would go back to normal. They had to. Sunday brunch at the Willow had been a family tradition for years. Nathan's mother, Denise, my mother, Harriet, my sister, Lila, Nathan's brother, Eric. We all gathered once a month to catch up and let Maya play with her cousins. Usually I looked forward to these brunches. Today I was dreading it. Nathan had barely spoken to me since Tuesday night. He'd been polite, functional, but there was a distance between us that felt like a chasm. I'd tried to explain about the restaurant, told him I'd taken a potential client to dinner to discuss a contract, but he'd just nodded and changed the subject. Now we were sitting around a large table at the Willow, Maya coloring quietly beside me while the adults made small talk. I could feel Nathan's eyes on me, and it was making me increasingly uncomfortable. "So, how's work going, Evadne?" Eric asked, cutting into his eggs Benedict. "Nathan mentioned you've been putting in some long hours lately." I shot Nathan a look. "It's been busy. We're onboarding several new vendors, so there's a lot of after-hours coordination." "That's dedication," my mother said approvingly. "Harriet always taught you to work hard." "Maybe too hard," Denise said quietly, her eyes flicking between Nathan and me. I felt my cheeks heat up. "I don't think there's such a thing as working too hard." "There is when it starts affecting your family," Nathan said calmly, not looking up from his coffee. The table went quiet. Maya stopped coloring and looked up at her father with worried eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, forcing a laugh. Nathan finally looked at me. "It means I barely see you anymore. Maya barely sees you. Last week you missed her school play because of a vendor emergency." "That was one time." Was it? Nathan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. Because I've been keeping track. In the last month, you've worked late 14 times. You've missed 3 family dinners, 1 parent-teacher conference, and Maya's soccer game. I stared at him, my mouth falling open. You've been keeping track? Are you serious right now? Someone has to, he said quietly. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I looked around the table, appealing to our family members. Do you see this? He follows me around like some kind of detective. It's creepy. My mother reached over and squeezed my hand. Nathan, honey, maybe you should trust that Evadne knows how to manage her own schedule. Trust, Nathan repeated, like the word tasted bitter. Right. What's that supposed to mean? Lila asked, looking between us with concern. Nathan was quiet for a moment, then he pulled out a piece of paper. The bank statement. It means I'm having trouble understanding why my wife had dinner at Chez Laurent on Tuesday night when she told me she was working late at the office. My heart stopped. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, could see Maya's confused expression as she looked back and forth between her parents. I told you, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I took a client to dinner. Which client? I don't think I should have to provide you with a detailed report of every business dinner I have, I said, my voice rising. This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior I'm talking about. Controlling? Denise set down her coffee cup with a sharp clink. He's asking about a $140 dinner that you lied about. I didn't lie about anything. I looked around the table desperately. I work in client relations. Sometimes that involves taking clients to dinner. I'm sorry if I don't remember every single detail of every single business meeting. But you do remember, Nathan said quietly. Because when I first asked about it, you knew exactly what I was talking about. You said you could explain it. I felt trapped, cornered. Everyone was staring at me, waiting for an answer I couldn't give. Not the real answer, anyway. This is insane, I said, standing up abruptly. I'm not going to sit here and be interrogated by my own husband in front of our families. Maya, get your jacket. Evadne, sit down, my mother said firmly. Let's talk about this like adults. There's nothing to talk about. I could hear my voice getting shrill, but I couldn't stop it. Nathan has become paranoid and controlling, and instead of dealing with his own issues, he's trying to make me the villain. I work hard to support this family, and this is the thanks I get. Supporting the family, Eric said incredulously. Nathan makes 3 times what you make. The words hit me like a slap. Money isn't the only way to support a family, Eric. You're right, Nathan said, his voice still maddeningly calm. But being present is, being honest is, being a partner is. I am being a partner. Are you? He pulled out his phone again. Because I have some questions about that too. My blood turned to ice. What questions? Questions about why you've been texting someone named LF until 2 in the morning. Questions about why you put your phone face down whenever I'm around. Questions about why you've changed your password 3 times in the last month. The silence at the table was deafening. I could see Maya's eyes filling with tears, could see the shock and disappointment on everyone's faces. You went through my phone, I whispered. I didn't have to. You left it unlocked on the counter yesterday morning. The messages were right there on the screen. I felt like I was drowning. Those are private conversations. With who, Evadne? Denise's voice was sharp. Who is LF? I looked around the table at all these people who were supposed to love me, supposed to support me, and all I saw was judgment and suspicion. This is exactly why I need someone to talk to, I said, my voice breaking. Because my own family treats me like a criminal. LF is a friend, okay? A friend who actually listens to me instead of assuming the worst about everything I do. A friend, Nathan repeated flatly. Yes, a friend. God forbid I have someone in my life who doesn't think I'm lying every time I open my mouth. Maya started crying quietly, and Lila reached over to comfort her. The sight of my daughter's tears broke something inside me. Look what you've done, I said to Nathan. You've upset Maya with your paranoid accusations. I've upset Maya. Nathan's composure finally cracked. I'm not the one who's been lying and sneaking around for months. I haven't been sneaking around. Then who is Liam Forster? The name hung in the air like a bomb. I felt all the blood drain from my face. How do you... I looked him up. Your friend LF, Liam Forster, 34, works for Pinnacle Supply. One of your vendors. Nathan's voice was deadly quiet. Want to tell me more about this friendship, Evadne? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Around the table, I could see the realization dawning on everyone's faces. My mother looked stricken. Lila was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Denise looked furious. It's not what you think, I finally managed to say. Then what is it? Nathan asked. I looked at my daughter, crying quietly in her aunt's arms, and I felt a surge of anger at Nathan for putting me in this position, for making me look like the bad guy, when all I'd done was try to find some happiness in a marriage that had grown cold and controlling. It's complicated, I said. Nathan stared at me for a long moment, then he stood up and threw some money on the table. Eric, he said quietly, I think I'm going to need that help you offered. Monday evening found me back at the office, long after everyone else had gone home. I'd texted Liam earlier, asking him to meet me here. We needed to talk about what had happened at brunch, about Nathan's suspicions, about what we were going to do next. The office building was quiet, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of traffic outside. I'd used my keycard to let us in through the back entrance, and now we were sitting in the small conference room where we'd first started having our extended meetings months ago. This is getting out of hand, Liam said, running his hands through his dark hair. He looked tired, stressed. Maybe we should cool things down for a while. I felt a spike of panic. What do you mean, cool things down? I mean, maybe we shouldn't see each other outside of work for a few weeks. Let things settle down at home. So you're just going to abandon me? I could hear the desperation in my voice. Right when I need support the most? Liam sighed. Evadne, I'm not abandoning you. But your husband is suspicious. Your family is asking questions. This is exactly the kind of drama I was trying to avoid. Drama? I stared at him. Is that what you think this is? Drama? What would you call it? I stood up and started pacing. I'd call it a man who's become so controlling and paranoid that he's driving his wife away. I'd call it emotional abuse, Liam. Liam was quiet for a moment. Is that really what you think is happening? Yes. He tracks my movements, goes through my phone, interrogates me about every conversation I have. He's made me feel like a prisoner in my own home. The words poured out of me, all the frustrations I'd been holding in for months. You're the only person who actually listens to me, who treats me like I matter. Evadne, Liam's voice was gentle but uncertain. Maybe you should think about couples counseling or something. Work things out with Nathan. Work things out? I turned to face him. There's nothing to work out. Nathan has decided I'm guilty of something, and now he's trying to prove it. He wants me to block you, delete your number, pretend we never met. Maybe that would be for the best. The words hit me like a physical blow. You want me to block you? I want you to do whatever's best for your family. What about what's best for me? I could feel tears starting to form. What about what makes me happy? Liam stood up and walked over to me. For a moment, I thought he was going to take me in his arms, tell me everything would be okay. Instead, he stopped just out of reach. Evadne, what we have, it's complicated. You're married. You have a daughter. I can't be the reason your family falls apart. You're not the reason, I said quickly. Nathan is. His jealousy, his need to control everything. You're just the excuse he's using. My phone buzzed on the table, a text message. I glanced at it and felt my heart stop. It was from Nathan. Care to explain? Attached was a screenshot of text messages between Liam and me from last week. Messages that were definitely more than friendly. Messages that talked about dinner, about how much we enjoyed each other's company, about how I wished things were different. "Oh, God," I whispered. Liam looked over my shoulder and swore under his breath. "How did he get those?" "I don't know." My hands were shaking. "I don't know how he got them." "Evadne, I think I should go." "No, wait." I grabbed his arm. "We need to figure this out. We need to decide what we're going to say." "What we're going to say." Liam pulled away from me. "Evadne, there is no we in this. These are your text messages, your marriage, your family. But you're involved now. He knows about you." "Yeah, and that's exactly what I was trying to avoid." Liam grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. "Look, I'm sorry. I really am, but I can't do this anymore." "You can't do what anymore?" "This. Us. Whatever this is." He headed toward the door. "I think it's best if we keep things strictly professional from now on." "Liam, please." I followed him to the door. "Don't let Nathan win. Don't let his controlling behavior destroy what we have." He stopped and turned back to me. "What do we have, Evadne? Really? A few dinners, some text messages, a couple of moments. Is that worth destroying your marriage over?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to tell him that what we had was real, was important, was worth fighting for. But looking at his face, I could see that he'd already made his decision. "I'll see you around the office," he said quietly, and then he was gone. I stood alone in the empty conference room, staring at my phone. Nathan's message was still there, waiting for a response. The screenshot of my private conversations, my private thoughts, my private feelings. I typed and deleted a dozen different responses. Explanations, justifications, accusations. Nothing seemed right. Finally, I settled on, "We need to talk." His response came immediately. "Yes, we do." I gathered my things and headed home, my mind racing. I needed to get ahead of this, needed to control the narrative. Nathan had taken some innocent text messages and twisted them into something they weren't. Yes, Liam and I had become close. Yes, we'd had some dinners, some conversations that maybe crossed a line. But it wasn't an affair. It wasn't what Nathan was making it out to be. It was complicated. The drive home felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept rehearsing what I would say, how I would explain. Nathan was being controlling and invasive. He'd violated my privacy, gone through my personal messages. That was the real issue here, not some innocent friendship that he'd blown out of proportion. When I pulled into our driveway, I could see Nathan silhouetted in the kitchen window, waiting for me. Ready for a confrontation I wasn't sure I could win, but I had to try. I had to make him understand that he was the problem here, not me. I was the victim of his paranoia and control, not the perpetrator of some imagined betrayal. I just had to make him see that. The house felt like a battlefield when I walked through the front door. Nathan was sitting at the dining room table, not the kitchen table where we usually ate, but the formal dining room table that we only used for holidays and special occasions. The table was set with our good china, like we were about to have some kind of ceremonial dinner. Maya was already seated, looking small and confused in her chair. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying. "What's all this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Family dinner," Nathan said calmly. I thought it was time we all sat down together and had an honest conversation. My stomach clenched. "Nathan, maybe we should talk privately first." "No." His voice was firm. "Maya deserves to understand what's happening in her family. Age appropriately, of course." I sat down slowly, my mind racing. "Honey," I said to Maya, "why don't you go upstairs and play while Mommy and Daddy talk?" "She stays," Nathan said. "Nathan." "She stays, Evadne. She's been asking me why Mommy and Daddy have been fighting. She's been asking why you're never home anymore. She deserves some answers." I looked at my daughter's worried face and felt a surge of anger at Nathan for putting her in the middle of this. "This isn't appropriate." "What's not appropriate," Nathan said, pulling out a manila folder, "is lying to your family for months." He opened the folder and spread out papers across the table like he was presenting evidence in a courtroom. Bank statements, printed emails, phone records, screenshots of text messages. Jesus, Nathan, what is all this? This is the truth, Evadne, the truth you've been hiding. He picked up the first document. Bank statement from October. Chez Laurent, $140. You told me you were working late on inventory reports. I explained that. You said you took a client to dinner, but here's your timesheet from that day. He slid another paper across the table. You clocked out at 5:30 p.m., and here's the security log from your office building. You and Liam Forster left together at 5:45 p.m. My mouth went dry. How did you get the security logs? I have friends in IT, Evadne, people who understand what it's like to be lied to by someone you trust. Maya was looking back and forth between us, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. Mummy, she said in a small voice, what's happening? I reached over and took her hand. Nothing's happening, sweetheart. Daddy's just confused about some things. Confused? Nathan's voice rose slightly. Let me show you what I'm confused about. He pulled out a stack of printed text messages. These are your conversations with Liam Forster over the last 3 months. Would you like me to read some of them out loud? Nathan, not in front of Maya. I wish I could see you tonight, he read. Nathan's working late again. Sometimes I feel so lonely in my own house. Stop it. Dinner was perfect. You make me feel like myself again. I said stop it. I can't stop thinking about last night. When can we do it again? The words hung in the air like poison. Maya's hand slipped out of mine. Those are private conversations, I said, my voice shaking. You had no right to read them. I had no right. Nathan stared at me. I'm your husband, Evadne. I had every right to know that my wife was having an affair. I'm not having an affair. The words came out louder than I intended, and Maya flinched. I immediately felt terrible, but I couldn't take them back now. Then what would you call it? Nathan asked quietly. I would call it friendship. I would call it having someone to talk to when my own husband treats me like a criminal. I could feel the familiar anger building, the righteous indignation that had carried me through so many arguments. You want to know why I've been spending time with Liam? Because he listens to me. He treats me like I matter. He doesn't interrogate me every time I walk through the door. So this is my fault. Yes, it is your fault. You've become so controlling, so suspicious, so cold. When's the last time you asked me about my day because you actually cared, not because you were looking for inconsistencies in my story? Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into the folder again and pulled out another document. Here's your phone log from last Tuesday. You called Liam at 11:47 p.m. The call lasted 38 minutes. What were you talking about for 38 minutes at midnight, Evadne? I felt trapped, cornered. Every answer I gave just led to more questions, more evidence, more proof of... what? That I'd found someone who understood me, that I'd found some happiness outside of this cold, suspicious marriage. We're friends, I said desperately. People talk to their friends. At midnight, while lying in bed next to your husband, I wasn't in bed. I was downstairs getting some water. You were in the bathroom. I heard you whispering. Maya started crying quietly, and I felt my heart break. This was exactly what I'd been trying to avoid. Nathan was destroying our family with his paranoia and accusations. Look what you're doing to her, I said, gesturing toward Maya. Look what your jealousy is doing to our daughter. My jealousy? Nathan's composure finally cracked. Evadne, you've been having an emotional affair for months. You've been lying to me, to Maya, to our families. You've been sneaking around, deleting messages, changing passwords. And when I finally confront you with evidence, you blame me for being jealous? It's not an affair. Nothing physical happened. The words slipped out before I could stop them, and I immediately knew I'd made a mistake. Nathan's face went white. Nothing physical happened, he repeated slowly. Yet. That's not what I meant. So you admit it. You admit you've been emotionally involved with another man. You admit you've been lying to me for months. I looked around the dining room, at the formal place settings and the manila folder full of evidence, at my crying daughter and my furious husband, and I felt like I was drowning. I admit that I've been unhappy, I said finally. I admit that I found someone who makes me feel valued and appreciated. I admit that I've been talking to someone who actually cares about my thoughts and feelings. And I admit, Nathan said quietly, that I've been talking to a lawyer. The words hit me like a physical blow. A lawyer? I filed for divorce this morning, Avadni. I'm done. Maya's crying got louder, and I reached for her, but she pulled away from me. You can't be serious, I whispered. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Nathan started gathering up the papers. I'm filing for primary custody of Maya. I'm freezing our joint accounts, and I'm asking for the house. Nathan, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. No. He stood up and picked up Maya, who buried her face in his shoulder. We can't. Because even now, even after everything I've shown you, you still think you're the victim here. He headed toward the stairs with Maya, then stopped and turned back to me. I want you to pack a bag tonight, Ivadni. You can stay at your mother's while we figure out the custody arrangement. You can't kick me out of my own house. Actually, I can. I spoke to my lawyer about that too. He disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone in the dining room with the scattered evidence of my lies. I could hear him upstairs, talking softly to Maya, probably trying to comfort her, trying to explain why Mommy and Daddy wouldn't be living together anymore. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and scrolled to Liam's number. I needed to talk to someone, needed someone to tell me that I wasn't crazy, that Nathan was being unreasonable, that this whole situation was spiraling out of control. But then I remembered his words from earlier. I think it's best if we keep things strictly professional from now on. I was completely alone. The next few days passed in a blur of humiliation and desperate damage control. I'd been staying at my mother's house, sleeping in my childhood bedroom like I was 16 again. Every morning, I woke up hoping this was all just a nightmare, that I'd go home and find Nathan making coffee in the kitchen, Maya getting ready for school, everything back to normal. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was my new reality. I'd tried calling Nathan a dozen times, but he wasn't answering. When I went by the house to get more clothes, I found that he'd changed the locks. There was a note taped to the door with the number for his lawyer. Now I was sitting in my car outside Maya's school, waiting for pickup time. I needed to see my daughter, needed to make sure she was okay, needed to explain that none of this was my fault. When Maya came out, she looked around uncertainly before spotting me. She walked over slowly, her backpack dragging behind her. "Hi, sweetheart," I said as she got in the car. "How was school?" "Okay." Her voice was small, distant. "Did you have fun at recess? Did you play with Emma and Sophie?" Maya shrugged. "Emma asked me why you and Daddy are getting divorced." My heart clenched. "What did you tell her?" I said I don't know. She looked at me with eyes that seemed too old for her 7-year-old face. "Why are you and Daddy getting divorced, Mommy?" I pulled over to the side of the road and turned to face her. "Sweetheart, Daddy and I are having some problems right now. But it's not because of anything you did, okay? Sometimes grown-ups just disagree about things." "Is it because of Liam?" The name coming from my daughter's mouth made me feel sick. "Who told you about Liam?" "I heard you and Daddy fighting. Daddy said you like Liam more than us." "That's not true, Maya. I love you more than anyone in the whole world. Liam is just a friend from work." "Then why is Daddy so mad?" I struggled to find words that would make sense to a 7-year-old, words that wouldn't make me sound like the villain in this story. Sometimes when people are unhappy, they blame other people for their problems. Daddy is unhappy, so he's blaming me and my friend Liam. Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Are you going to come home?" "I'm trying, sweetheart. I'm trying to work things out with Daddy." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Nathan wasn't interested in working things out. He'd made that clear. After I dropped Maya back at the house, She ran inside without looking back. I drove to my office. I needed to focus on work, needed to feel like there was at least one area of my life that wasn't completely falling apart. But as soon as I walked into the building, I could feel the stares, the whispered conversations that stopped when I passed by. Word had gotten out somehow. Maybe through Liam, maybe through someone else, but everyone seemed to know that Evadne Morrow was getting divorced, that there had been some kind of scandal. Janet, our office manager, approached me cautiously. "Evadne, can we talk?" We went into her office, and she closed the door behind us. "I got a call yesterday," she said, "from Nathan. He was asking about your work schedule, about Liam." My face burned with embarrassment. "What did you tell him?" "I told him I couldn't discuss personnel matters, but Evadne..." She looked uncomfortable. "People are talking about you and Liam leaving together, about the after-hours meetings. I need to know if there's anything I should be concerned about." "There's nothing to be concerned about," I said quickly. "Liam and I work together on vendor contracts. Sometimes that requires meetings outside normal business hours." Janet nodded, but I could see the skepticism in her eyes. "Okay, but maybe it would be best if those meetings happened during regular hours from now on, with other people present." I wanted to argue, wanted to defend myself, but I could see that I was fighting a losing battle. Everyone had already made up their minds about what kind of person I was. "Fine," I said. "Whatever you think is best." The rest of the day was torture. I could feel people watching me, judging me, whispering about my personal life. When I passed Liam in the hallway, he barely acknowledged me. When I tried to catch his eye during the afternoon meeting, he looked right through me. After work, I met my sister Lila for coffee. I was desperate to talk to someone who might understand my side of the story. "I can't believe Nathan changed the locks," Lila said, stirring her latte. "That seems extreme." "Everything Nathan's doing is extreme," I said. "He's acting like I committed some terrible crime, when all I did was make a friend." Lila was quiet for a moment. "Evadne, can I ask you something? And I want you to be honest with me." "Of course." "Did you sleep with Liam?" The question hit me like a slap. "No, God, not you too." "I'm not judging you. I'm just trying to understand what happened." "What happened is that I was lonely and unhappy in my marriage, and I found someone who actually listened to me, someone who made me feel like I mattered." I could feel tears starting to form. "And now everyone's acting like I'm some kind of monster." "You're not a monster," Lila said gently. "But Evadne, those text messages Nathan showed us at brunch, they didn't sound like just friendship. So what if they didn't? So what if I developed feelings for someone who treated me well? I never acted on those feelings. Didn't you? The dinners, the late-night phone calls, the lying to Nathan." "I wasn't lying. I was just protecting my privacy." Lila sighed. "Evadne, I love you. You're my sister, and I'll always be on your side. But I think you need to be honest with yourself about what really happened here." I stared at her, feeling betrayed. "You think this is my fault too?" "I think it's complicated. I think you were unhappy, and you made some choices that hurt your family. I think Nathan overreacted, but I also think he had a right to be upset. So what am I supposed to do? Just let him destroy my life because he's jealous and controlling?" "I think you should fight for your marriage, get counseling, cut off contact with Liam, show Nathan that you're committed to making things work." "He won't even talk to me, Lila. He's filed for divorce. It's too late for counseling." "It's not too late until the papers are signed." That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom, staring at my phone. Liam's number was still in my contacts. I'd thought about calling him a dozen times, but I kept hearing his words. "I think it's best if we keep things strictly professional." But maybe if I explained the situation, maybe if I told him how much I needed his support right now, he'd understand. Maybe he'd realize that what we had was worth fighting for. I typed out a message. "I know you said we should keep things professional, but I really need someone to talk to right now. Nathan's filed for divorce. My whole life is falling apart. Can we just talk? As friends?" I stared at the message for a long time before hitting send. The response came back almost immediately. I'm sorry you're going through this, but I think it's best if we don't communicate outside of work matters. I hope you understand. I threw my phone across the room and buried my face in my pillow. Everyone had abandoned me. Nathan, Liam, even my own sister. They all thought I was the problem, that I was the one who had destroyed everything. But I knew the truth. I knew that I was the victim here, that I'd been driven to seek comfort outside my marriage because of Nathan's controlling behavior. I knew that what Liam and I had shared was real and meaningful, even if he was too scared to admit it now. I just had to figure out how to make everyone else see it too. The mediation office was nothing like I'd expected. I'd imagined something dramatic, like a courtroom from a TV show, but it was just a bland conference room with beige walls and uncomfortable chairs. Nathan was already there when I arrived, sitting next to a woman in a sharp business suit who I assumed was his lawyer. He didn't look at me when I walked in. My own lawyer, a harried-looking man named David Chen, who my mother had found through a friend of a friend, was shuffling through papers and looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The mediator, a stern woman in her 50s named Mrs. Patterson, called the session to order. We're here today to discuss the dissolution of the marriage between Nathan and Yvette Morrow, specifically regarding custody arrangements for their minor child Maya and the division of marital assets. She looked at both of us over her glasses. Mr. Morrow, you've filed for primary custody. Can you explain your reasoning? Nathan's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Jennifer Walsh, opened a thick folder. My client has evidence that Mrs. Morrow has been engaging in an extramarital affair, lying to the family about her whereabouts, and prioritizing her relationship with another man over her responsibilities as a mother. That's not true, I said, but Mrs. Patterson held up a hand. Mrs. Morrow, you'll have your chance to respond. Ms. Walsh, please present your evidence. What followed was the most humiliating hour of my life. Nathan's lawyer methodically went through every piece of evidence Nathan had collected. Bank statements, phone records, text messages, security logs, even a statement from Maya's teacher, noting that she'd seemed withdrawn and anxious in recent months. As you can see, Ms. Walsh said, Mrs. Morrow has been systematically deceiving her husband about her relationship with Mr. Liam Forster, a vendor at her workplace. She's missed family obligations, lied about working late, and spent marital funds on romantic dinners with another man. In mediation, everything I'd tried to minimize was laid out like a crime scene. Nathan's lawyer produced hotel receipts from the riverside, phone logs, and timelines that shredded my claim that it had been just an emotional friendship. 4 hours in a hotel room on a rainy afternoon didn't sound like innocent talking to anyone but me. When Mrs. Patterson pressed, I clung to excuses about loneliness and Nathan being controlling, but even I could hear how hollow it all sounded. Nathan finally spoke, calm and tired, calling it what it was, adultery funded with our shared money, while he stayed home helping Maya with homework and wondering why his wife was always gone. By the time they finished, there was nothing left to hide behind. I had no evidence that Nathan was an unfit father. In fact, I had to admit he was a good one. So Mrs. Patterson recommended primary custody for Nathan, supervised visitation for me, the house and most assets to him, and my responsibility for debts tied to the affair. I protested it wasn't fair, that I wasn't a monster, and Nathan agreed, but said I was someone who chose her own happiness over her family. When everyone left, I sat alone with the paperwork and finally saw it without denial. I hadn't been forced into anything. I'd chosen the affair, chosen the lies, chosen to put Maya second. Nathan would move on and rebuild their lives, and I would be the one who had to live with the fact that I'd destroyed my own family.